Hey, everybody. I am Dr. Tim Harrigan from Synergy Wellness. I've got a good friend of mine on the call with us today, Mr. Mark. I want to share with our audience some cool testing that we've been using in our practice and with myself and my family for a little while now. It's incredible. So, as you know, heart disease is the #1 killer in the United States, specifically, in several other countries. And so, my practice and my life is designed around literally addressing the cause of a problem versus treating things, but also optimization and prevention. And honestly, prevention is not even a good enough term for what we do. I don't want to just prevent something, right? I can prevent myself from throwing out my back if I prevent myself from bending over, right? That doesn't mean that I'm actually optimizing something, though. So optimization is really, I guess, the proper term here. So we've used some of these technologies that you've introduced to me for a couple years now, and it's been incredible. As you know, we put about 250 people through a cardiovascular beta testing system that we did just to kind of confirm and verify that all of this stuff is what it seems, it does what it does, and it's actually impactful for improving our health and hopefully delaying or preventing that cardiovascular issue for a long time. So we're not treating anything, but when you have data on functional measurements in the body, and we see those functional measurements change over time, whether it's getting better or worse, that's incredible. I don't want to base my health simply on my symptoms, because we all know somebody that we know potentially tomorrow might have a heart attack. Half of the people that have a heart attack don't make it, they die, right? And usually that heart attack is the first symptom of that person's heart disease that usually took decades to occur. Okay, there's people being diagnosed with stage 3 and stage 4 cancer, all over the world right now. They don't feel the cancer in their body. So I think most of us really determine, kind of judge if we're healthy or not based on how I feel. And we want people to feel good, but without measurements, we don't know. We're guessing. So super grateful for you for introducing me to these technologies. I want to get into a little bit about the nitric oxide strips, what it does, why we use it, when to use it, and also the testing system called iHeart that tells us of course, we know our actual age, but we also want to determine what is my internal age. What's a measurement of my cardiovascular function on the inside? If I'm 40 years old, I don't want to look like I'm 60 years old on the inside, of course. So this is one tool that helps determine that for us. So Mark, thanks for joining me here. If we can, I want to talk first about the nitric oxide strips and the Microflora strips. So can you explain those to our audience here and let us know when we would use these, why they're beneficial?
Absolutely. Tim, I love working with Synergy Wellness, and it's always nice when you can validate the results for people. And I like how you speak and you take a stand for really supporting people's higher good. Long have I worked with the chiropractic community. You're not really a chiropractic center, it's one of the things you do. That's obviously important in the alignment of your spine, all the connections and so forth, and you understand the body. And so the world as well is very much, our bodies actually have a lot with what's called epigenetics. It's our environment. So it's not just what we're eating, it's what's eating us. So I know that those stressors, those emotions, these feelings, and really the last 2 years of being locked down and so forth has been tremendous for people. And health is wealth, and our wealth is in our health. So when we're able to measure things and have a quantitative, then we know how to make the adjustments that best fit and suit your lifestyle. And that's what I love that you're about. Let's talk about the test strips first. So we have a metabolic process. Actually, if you look at the science out there, they'll refer to things now as metabolic syndrome, cardiometabolic, syndrome X. They've got all these other different things, but that all has to do with, again, what we're digesting. It also has a lot to do with our autonomic nervous system. Fight, flight. Now there's a new one: fight, flight, freeze. It's like, where am I in relation to that? How are we? You know, we know how we show up for ourselves and our family and our work and life, but sometimes, I mean, trust the body. That's the first thing I say, and you know how to touch with that. So one of those is within the inner lining of our mouth. We have bacteria, and that bacteria is actually very beneficial. And I've been working with a compound, a structure called nitric oxide. It actually won the Nobel Prize in 1998. And they had a pathway, or they put the points that would best allow your body, feed it, the precursors that your body can produce nitric oxide through the inner lining of your arteries. I mean, sorry, a little bit technical. It's endothelium. It's the inner lining of all of your arteries, and very important. So that's like the guard. I was watching Obi-Wan Kenobi the other day, and they had the shields, you know, for the Star Wars. That's our shield for the rest of our circulation, blood pressure, and so forth. Very important to keep the structure of your arteries pliable, healthy, elastic, flowing. It's all about the flow, as you know. And that's not just from your spine, that's your entire circulation. So we're also now found through the research that there's other pathways to nitric oxide other than a few like semi-essential amino acids and so forth. And one of those is nitrates, dietary nitrates. And what the test strip does is it takes the saliva and you just swab it on your tongue, so the back is far, and then you just squeeze it, and it will come back with a color. The darker the color, and this one actually has 2-in-1, so not only does it measure the bacteria here, but it actually measures the microbiome, which is the good bacteria in your stomach. We have as much, actually more receptor sites in our stomach than we have in our brain. So when people talk about the digestion being the second brain, I've heard you speak of that. This actually shows, and you want to keep that healthy gut going, because really, unless you have these good bacteria to break things down, you're not going to digest or eliminate properly. Now, so this does 2-in-1. It measures that color. You want to do this obviously just after drinking water. Don't drink coffee or anything, tea. But this is really like an immediate response to how much NO potentiality you have through the bacteria and through your microbiome. They both work together. There are other ones out there. If you were to Google it, there are other ones that use an NO strip, but then it's only using one part of it. And the part that I feel is as important is the microbiome, because the bacteria will actually start from your gut and then come out this way. Want to make a footnote here. One of the things you should immediately, if you're doing this right now, take out of your lifestyle is mouthwash, or these astringent type things like Scope and Listerine. They're not healthy for you. It's not a good habit to get into. I know people would refer to it for breath and so forth, but there's other alternatives you can use. Certainly even toothpaste that has other components in there, which Tim could talk to you about, we wouldn't recommend as well, because you want to keep that. That bacteria is really very important for our entire, I'm going to add this in there, immune system. Your immune system, this is really one of the first lines of defense we have both here and here. So when you have this, it's an immediate, takes about 15 seconds. You could see how your body is metabolizing. And now, for those of you that have a great, let's say you eat kale, and, a lot of greens and veggies, you're going to see an immediate response to that. For the most part, it's tracking what you're doing. This has long been held more by athletes. So a lot of athletes will get in the zone and they'll do high dosing beet juice extract and some other things, pomegranate. Um, and some of those do definitely help short term, but let's say long term, again, unless you're a world class athlete, that makes sense. But really, for day to day, it's monitoring an ideal ecosystem, because here we're looking at your pH, we're looking at that, again, that microbiome, which I do know enzymes have a direct correlation with that, or increased enzymes, certainly raw foods. But remember, a lot of our diet, Tim, is cooked, fried. We're losing a lot of those specific chemical processes that are very important for maintaining ideal health.
Absolutely. And the comment about the mouthwash is that's kind of a twofold thing. You know, by the time you have bad breath, that's why usually people use those. That's a microbiome dysbiosis type situation anyway. So now we're covering that up with scope or whatever. But now we're also screwing up our microbiome even more with those chemicals, right? So this is, I won't show you the name of this, but you know, this is something we show all of our patients. And this was bought, if you can read that there, in April 2008. And this is what you were just referring to. This is not really food. This does not provide the body good nitric oxide precursors or good microflora, you know, prebiotic type things. This is not really food. Mold won't even grow on this. And this is what, you know, the average American eats, you know, at least weekly, sometimes daily. And we wonder why heart disease is the #1 killer. So on the nitric oxide strips, I just wanted to show, can you see that okay there?
Yeah,
I just wanted to show this. So this is basically the test. And what it's going to do is it's going to show us if you have if you're deficient in nitric oxide, and if your microflora is deficient, then we can use this as a gauge to see what affects it. You know, what in my lifestyle is actually going to affect this stuff. And as you know, we have tools that we've trialed and errored for, you know, lots of different, you know, years and many people. And we've kind of come down to certain things that just work the best based on that evidence. So I appreciate you explaining that. So that's the nitric oxide strips. I want to talk about the cool little device here that looks like a pulse oximeter. And this device is incredible. This is also a test that we do with the strips. And let me share my screen here. And it's been incredible. So we walked a lot of different people through these tests, over 250, over probably 400 at this point. That was a little while back. But this little device is incredible. This is what we mentioned, that we, you know, obviously we all know our actual age, but what's my internal age? What's my arterial age? And why does that even matter? Why would we want to do this, Mark?
Well, you had said it earlier on. We're not run by symptoms. Look at what's happened over the last 2 years, which has been like all over the media. You know it. It's like, oh my god, I'm gonna catch this thing, and you know, and the biggest concern was people were asymptomatic, and well, okay, and all of a sudden, you know, other symptoms happened. Well, let's go back to, and maybe in the last couple of weeks or years here, Tim, have you ever done exercise where you had a twisted ankle or a bad back, or you threw out your hand?
Yep, many times.
Yeah, of course. Uh, well, think about that. That our body, inflammation is a fire inside. And when you have an inflammatory response, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's a signal. It's a warning sign that if, let's say, for instance, you know, you throw out your back, your body's saying, "Hey, get adjusted, lay off a little bit, you know, slow your roll, no, you know, heavy strenuous work, or it's going to get more and more injured." But the heart is very different than that, because it does sometimes. What has happened more or less is that, and women and men respond differently. There have been cases, lots of cases, where someone goes into the emergency room and it's a female, and they say, "Oh, you have indigestion, you have heartburn, what have you," and and it may have very well been, but no, they're finding that they had a minor stroke or heart attack. How many of those is that where we sit there and we go, do I need an antacid? Is my rib out? You know, I have what's there. So we're kind of guessing and not really testing. And when do they actually ever test? When you've had that first heart attack or stroke. So that's why they call it the silent killer. It doesn't give you always that warning sign. We hear about all the time. People say, "Oh, your arm is gonna freeze up. You're gonna sweat. You're gonna have this." I mean, all the different warning signs. Well, man, most of those sound like the first time I fell in love with my wife. I had butterflies in my stomach. I couldn't sleep. My heart was hurt. It's like, what is it? So we now give and empower people to see what's going on, not from a standpoint that there's something wrong, but where am I trending? Because this, ladies and gentlemen, especially when it comes to heart disease, in the past, it used to be, okay, by the time you're 70, 80, heart attack, stroke. Your arteries are going to get stiff. That's life. But there is now, in this generation, really one before us, accelerated aging. People are aging much faster inside. That part of that's epigenetic from a very, we're in front of our computers, we're not active, we're sitting down, more sedentary. But also, you mentioned the foods and the quality of the foods and the processing of the foods are only creating more inflammation. And this is all fed through a circulatory system that works very, very hard. Every day, your blood travels 12,000 miles. We only have a couple liters of blood. Do you know how much our heart works every day? It better. Every heartbeat is important. And it's the one we don't think about. It's like, how many of you wake up in the morning going, gee, I wonder how my heart's doing? I wonder how my arteries are doing until it's, let's say, too late. So what we're seeing now is, excuse me, folks, I'm going to call young people 33 and below. My oldest is 33. My youngest is 25. I'm 50 plus tax. Their generation is 7, 10, 20 years older inside. So chronologically, my son is 33. The average of most of them are coming in at 40 to 50. So by the time he becomes my age, which will be, 20 something years from now, where will his arteries or his internal age be in relationship to his own age? How is he trending his aging? That's what we're talking about. And it's not about cleaning up after elephants. Because by the time, and we've got great medicine in the United States and North America, you have your first heart attack or stroke, no problem, stint. I think they're on sale, about $86,000 per each one, with no guarantee because they'll clog up within 7 years, average. This is all done through whole foods, superfoods, components, precursors that help your body create nitric oxide through several pathways that both Tim and I have. And I say more with you, Tim, in Synergy, we have shown real world, real results with people from all walks of life, seeing the results that they have. And that's really exciting because it's not a, ladies and gentlemen, I'll just make this statement. You may have to mute this out. I don't believe anybody has two things. Nobody has a caffeine deficiency. Apparently Starbucks has this one over on that. Everyone has a caffeine deficiency and nobody has a statin deficiency. And I've been saying that for 20 years. I don't take statins. My parents, who are 85 and 83 respectively, don't take statins. They don't need it. They have done other things to support their well-being through foods, through proper nutrition, dietary supplements, which really whole foods, that's where they're at because they're not deficient in a statin. Coffee, why do I bring that up? Because it's not just coffee anymore, as you know. Now it's energy drinks. People aren't lacking energy. I'm just going to suggest we need more oxygen. We need to be flowing better, and that's not going to happen by affecting my adrenals or yours with Red Bull and energy drinks or lots of coffee. Not a fan. I love coffee. Don't get me wrong, but now that does not replace true energy coming from blood flow. Obviously, exercise and other things that you could do to support that. It's nice. And what's great is we could see these changes with the iHeart. You could track it where it's cost effective and you just see where you're at and you can monitor it, once you're, where you'd like to be. You just come once a year. Some people come every 3 to 4 months because they're really be able to track it. So it's fabulous that you can support all of that because it's all about your win.
Well, that's a great point, Mark. And I want people to realize that, we're not treating things. That's just silly. I don't want to treat anything. I want to upgrade my own health and optimize whatever I can. And as you know, we'll get into this in another presentation, but every decade we age, we lose the nitric oxide production in our blood vessels. We lose the precursors. We have so much stress. We inhibit that process. So it's no wonder heart disease is the number one killer. So when we can improve that nitric oxide production with those precursors, with the blood flow and the oxygen, I want people to understand what in your body couldn't benefit from that, right? I'm not treating heart disease. We don't want to treat those things. But if I realize I'm deficient in oxygen and nitric oxide and blood flow, and my red blood cells are not delivering the oxygen and nutrients to every single cell in your body, we're made up of 10 to 30 trillion cells. They all need nutrients. They all need oxygen. They're constantly regenerating themselves. If we can just improve that one thing in my body, what else could benefit? Everything, every tissue is made of cells. Every organ is made of tissues, which is made of cells. So cells are the building block. So I want people to understand that if we improve blood flow, it's helped, headaches that I've had in the past, for example, by just getting extra oxygen. It's helped people with, maybe digestive problems. Again, oxygen is everything. So if we can increase the body's ability to transfer that oxygen better, that's just silly not to do it, honestly. So, Mark, thanks for your time. I appreciate it very much. I want to show that really cool video now as a grand finale here for people to just get some more information on the iHeart. Reach out to us with any questions, and just consider maybe some things that we haven't ever been taught. So, thank you, Mark.
Thank you. You want to go ahead and show it?
Yeah, please.
Okay, let me share my screen here. And since I know you're going to edit this, I'd like to say that Go Pulsewave is really a nonprofit. It's more an education site. It is teamed up with Synergy Wellness. We are very clear about educating the public as to these options and empowering them with the information there. So nothing is available for sale there. You'll be seeing more with that, and that is teamed up with Synergy Wellness with Dr. Tim Harrigan. So, and I think you should. This video is only a few minutes here, but it goes at a very good pace here. So, enjoy.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, as you see the video, folks, it will show the difference between your chronological age and your biological age. So, as if a patient is 40 years age, uh, we're not taking any details, just your date of birth. It will distinguish what your actual arterial age is. This is a patented FDA cleared technology. And what's real nice is, again, is you can monitor all the small changes. And as you compare, it's not a diagnostic. I look at this, folks, and, Tim has 4 young kids. I remember those days, and still even today, you know, what do we do in medicine for the most part? Or we're not going to say medicine, healthcare, strike that. One of the kids doesn't feel as well. What is the first thing you do? You take their temperature. It's a great discriminator because it will distinguish and say if there is something else there, maybe something they ate or what have you. Uh, uh, that's what this is. It's a biomarker that measures something that has largely been misunderstood, which is your pulse. It's using a like an oximeter, but it's measuring that flow throughout the body because it has a structure, it has a response. And that's really key for everything about our body in terms of our circulation, our digestion. And what I also think, this has became one of the most important instruments over the last 2 years. There was a run on them because it measures your oxygen levels. That's what they've been using. People go in there. I just spoke to someone literally yesterday that it was down to 85, under 90 oxygen level. That's actually quite dangerous. It turned out he had walking pneumonia. And they had to take him in and, they took care of him. So it's like, how do you prevent that, folks? Well, sometimes you can't, but what you do is like prevention is like if you drive down the street and there's potholes. Well, you're gonna try to drive around them. Why don't we cover the potholes before we go over them? That's prevention. In Chinese medicine, in one of the oldest Chinese medicine hospitals, it says they're translating. Okay, it says in Chinese, but I'll translate. It says, dig your well before you're thirsty. That's what we're here about. So stay thirsty, my friends.
Awesome. Thank you, Mark.